I've never been to. It's kind of mythical in my mind a little bit. I've looked at it through Google. I'm like, oh my God, look at all those lakes and just no one around, just
Oh
open.
yeah,
So,
dude, I was driving. Like, I had to drive my girlfriend back to Saskatoon, and we're not live anywhere, are we?
Yeah,
Just live. Yeah. Oh, and it's just
that's right.
it's 5 hours of just prairies, right? Nothing there. And I was thinking about that. I was thinking about all this room, and there's no people here.
Right, and so that serenity, that's valuable, and so yeah, no, I'm serious. Canada's always been like kind of a mythical place in my life. Of all the 50 states in America, I've been to all of them except Alaska. So definitely in my future, I got some rad trip of driving north.
Drive north, go right on through to Alaska. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll wave to you on the highway as you drive by.
Yeah.
You know what? No, maybe I'll do a detour. I'll do a detour over to where you guys are and hang out for a little bit.
Yeah, you should for sure.
Give us a call.
Yeah.
Give us a call for sure.
I could blog it.
You could have even broke the COVID. You could have got through the loophole of the COVID and traveled through Canada. Just saying that you're going to Alaska. I mean, that was open for a little while before they figured out that so many people were doing it.
Well, my 1999 Volvo V70 wagon ran into some problems. So I was building up some of the. I was building up. Well, it ended up being $4,000 bill. It needed a valve job, a timing chain, a couple other things. Are you guys still there? I'm not hearing you. Right?
Yeah, we're here. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I guess just headphones.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So anyway, the timing was off for me to make the trip at that point. Nice. But we're all starting to open up again, right? It's
yeah. One day, you can drive right through.
Back to the new normal.
Yeah. You have to come out and see the Rockies and stuff, and go up that way for sure.
Well, yeah, no, I in 1996 I followed the Olympic torch to Atlanta, the '96 games. We were selling T-shirts, pins, hats, the whole thing. It was a rock show every day. Just handed, tons of money. So I saw all the country on that one. Then we did it again in 2002 for the Salt Lake games, and it was even radder then because it was right after 9/11, and everyone wanted to be out on the street and be there for America and stuff. That was incredible. So I have seen the Rockies, and when someone mentions the Rockies, one of the days I'll never forget for the rest of the day of my life, the 2002 Olympic torch was going to the west side. Now there's starting to peak out to the divide and starting to go. And we came around this turn, and it was a snowy day, but it was a clear, sunny, snowy day, and you could see forever. And it was one of the most amazing. I love even just remembering that we came around. We were all in the van, we had right. Go, all right, who's getting up first? Came around. It was like everyone just shut up.
We lost you there. Might be your internet connection or something. So hopefully that'll be okay as we go. Are you ready to get going?
Yeah. I'm all
okay.
Ready.
All right. I'll just do a quick little. We'll jump in. All right. We've got John Herrera back. Herrera back with us. You were on in an intro. We talked about the Constitution Article 5, and we brought you back to talk more about that and the Hopi. Right. And then I thought maybe. I feel like you got something else that you want to get off your chest about Sir Francis Bacon and Shakespeare and all that. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's stuff. I'd like to lead off with the Shakespeare stuff.
That's what I thought.
It's kind of short, and it's something. It's something for the listeners, the folks. Because I just came into knowledge of you guys like 3 months ago. It wasn't that long ago. And so, I've been going through your archives, listening to all the great things that you've recorded and everything. It's been awesome. And so the one guy that you interviewed, Alan Green, the Shakespeare stuff, well, I actually thought about this earlier. So let me put it to you this way. You know how in the soccer game where the guy almost had a cardiac arrest and they stopped the game and stuff, and then they were raising the question is, well, should these guys be playing so soon after a traumatic event and stuff? And so so I was like going, should you tell them about the Shakespeare stuff? Because it might be a little traumatic for some people.
Is this after watching the second one where he went through on the video with all the deconstructing the geometry on the cover and all that, more the pyramid type one?
Right. I saw you. He had, I guess, 2 interviews.
Yeah.
But yeah, more focused on that second one.
Okay.
And so anyway, so any of the listeners, anyone who's listening, it's not a mystery who Shakespeare was. It's not. It was Sir Francis Bacon. The guy was the son of Queen Elizabeth, the quote-unquote virgin queen, right? She had children outside of that, and she raised them in her court. She would, like, her head lawyer, which was Sir Bacon, she's like, you're going to raise this kid. And so it was her kid. Sir Bacon raised him, and the queen oversaw his life. He was sent abroad to France and Italy, where the Shakespearean plays happen. And so there's all that stuff. But the kicker is that Sir Francis Bacon, who is known to most people as the father of empiricism, he was the guy that had us make that shift from rats are born out of bales of straw, to wait, do we have any evidence for that? What's going on? So he was that guy, but he had a notebook that he kept while he was a young man at the court in France and at the court in Italy. And that notebook is called the Promise, and it's in the British Museum. It's an actual artifact. It's in his handwriting, and dozens and dozens and dozens of phrases that Sir Francis Bacon wrote into his notebook while abroad end up in the plays, all over the plays.
Do you remember why Alan said, because I remember asking him about that and trying to get him to admit that not that specific connection, but that there's a possibility, but he wasn't going for it, was he?
Now there's an impasse. When you reach that impasse, then you wonder, all right, are they on the take or are they asleep? Either they're on the take or they're asleep.
Well, no, I mean, he could have another complete theory, that they're.
Well, come on. If the Promise is an artifact that exists in a museum and it has all the phrases from Shakespeare predating the plays from 1594 to 1596, the Promise was written, and the plays all start showing up in 16 something. So if you think that it's if you do think there's dots, you can get it on Amazon. It's coincidences, and I sent you a text. But here's one of the coincidences. In Othello, this will be interesting, and we'll end with Shakespeare on this, and everyone can go check out the Shakespeare stuff at the links. But anyways, here's one of the coincidences. The tragedy of Othello was first printed in quarto in 1622, 6 years after the reputed author's death. So Othello first appeared 6 years after Shakespeare, the Stratford guy, died. Though it had been in existence as an acting play for 10 or 12 years preceding, in the folio of 1623, it appears in a revised form containing, among other striking improvements, 160 additional lines. So here we have a play that its latest quarto, when it was last published, had an additional 160 lines. Now that's like a big addition, right? There's tons of other plays. There's like small additions here and there. So 160 lines, and Okay, and it has to do with these lines that have to do with some rivers in the Mediterranean. And okay, so here's their example. It seems to be probable then that sometime between the date of the first appearance of the play on the stage, 1610, and that in the folio, 1623, the author's attention had been called to a tidal peculiarity of the Mediterranean Sea, namely that the current through which the Bosphorus flows continuously in one direction from east to west. William Shakespeare died in Stratford 6 years before this publication of the play in its original draft, which was, as we've said, in 1622. Francis Bacon investigated the tides of the Mediterranean in or about 1616, and in his treatise on the subject, made a special reference to the fact that through the Bosphorus, the tide never ebbs.
Interesting.
So here it is. Sir Francis Bacon is a sovereign, right? He's Hamlet, right? He's a bastard son of the queen. He's there. So Hamlet's all based on that, right? He's an incredible poet genius at that moment. With the divine right of kings and all that stuff, he came in there and he put his life into words. And so anyway, so it's a fascinating thing to look into. Well, if you are, if you want to adhere to it's someone else, then that's okay too.
Well, let me throw this at you then. Try and expand on it a little bit. What if Queen Elizabeth was a virgin, immaculate conception, and Bacon was the result?
Is Jesus?
No, like equivalent.
Oh, he's a new Jesus?
Like I'm just reading this book right now, and it's fascinating to me because it's about Mary and her mother and the Immaculate Conception and this thing that was happening through all the mythologies and through the ancient times with these women in secret societies and how they would try to become pregnant through divine intervention. And they were adjusting their diets and how they would have groups of they would do it in groups, and they would have to be virgins, and they'd have to be celibate and save all their sexual energy, and then they would sometimes get struck by light. I mean, this is going on way more than I thought through the ages. And what if that's more of a contemporary? I'm not through the book far enough to know if Queen Elizabeth is in there, but
no, it was known to all the people alive at the time. People like Johnson, right? He basically said, Sir Bacon gave us. He said Sir Bacon took the English language from a third world country to a first world country because no one spoke English before Shakespeare came along. And so
Bacon was supposed to be Oh, we're losing you again. We lost you again.
What? Okay, right. I can hear you now. Say it again. What was the last
Bacon? Bacon was supposed to be from divinely conceived by Queen Elizabeth. Or what did you say? What did you say at the beginning? Or was it Bacon? How did you say it was?
No. The divine right of kings. No, I was just saying that at the time, Bacon didn't like the people. He called them the rabble. The sweaty, hogs, or so Bacon was firmly in that culture that yes, there's a paradigm, there's a continuum from next to God to far away from God, and all that kind of stuff. So I was just saying in terms of that, of that cultural structure.
Now, my understanding is that doesn't Alan think Bacon's in on it?
Well, now that's
because
really
I'm just on his website right now, and he's got the portion of it that's called the Players: Queen Elizabeth I, Edward de Vere, Henry Leslie, Francis Bacon, John Dee. And then so I think his premise is that all those people have sort of conspired to create Shakespeare.
Yes, and I have been to the site, and I did go through all those pages. But if you look at his page on Bacon, it's conspicuous that he doesn't mention the promise at all. He doesn't mention the fact that the dude's notebook is in the British Museum with dozens and dozens of quotes that end up in the plays way before the plays were ever published. So if you got any doubts after that, and the fact that there's no, letters, there's no drafts, not a shred. Here's a guy who supposedly is a playwright trying to build up these new plays and make them as rad as possible. There's not one shred of communication between any of them. It should be really clear that for some reason the status quo people don't want us to know that Sir Francis Bacon was this rad dude, was a fucking literal genius. All the stuff he did for science and the arts. And if you do believe Bacon was Shakespeare, I mean, look at all the poems and the sonnets and stuff. The guy was a fucking genius. So
maybe he was divinely born. I think he was divinely born. Francis Bacon to Queen Elizabeth. Apologia, you are my own son, but you through truly royal of fresh and masterly spirit shall rule, nor England, nor your mother, nor reign over your subjects yet to be.
We're just a bunch of humans here on planet Earth. all that stuff is part of projection and myth and everything. Now, there could be truth in that projection, and I mean, if you look at our DNA, then you know that it can be unlocked and that we could all of a sudden live for hundreds of years, et cetera. We know that capability is there. So there is truth to that. But up to now, the narrative of humanity, as far as I've understood, based on the information I've processed, is that this is like a grand theater. We're at the tipping point here of what we're going to do as a species, and we have all this rad stuff, such as Shakespeare was Sir Francis Bacon. No ifs, ands,
so I'll read the part off his site here. Francis Bacon, another spear shaker. Sir Francis Bacon, Baron of Verulam, Viscount Saint, 1561 to 1626, was not only a recognized genius, but also a man of many parts. A renowned philosopher, poet, orator, author, essayist, cryptographer, courtier, lawyer, parliamentarian, statesman, intellectual reformer, and master of the English tongue. He was first QC and KC, and in later life became Lord Keeper of the Great Seal and Lord Chancellor. So, I mean, I feel like he does call him a genius, and he just thinks, and I feel like it doesn't have to be either or, because he seems to think that, he conspired with John Dee and a couple other people to create Shakespeare. So he might have done all the writing, and the other people have helped do the encoding.
Well, said that text you just read, Bacon is a master of the English tongue, when in reality, Bacon was the one who made English masterful. He was the one who went abroad, and all those words. Do you know how many words were added to the English language with those poems and with those plays? So that's I personally I don't know what Alan's story is. I sent him an email saying, "Hey, what about the poems?" I never heard back from him. But which actually, I did talk to the guy at sirbacon.org. His name is Lawrence Gerald, and I'll shoot you his number. I talked to him. I said, can you please do an interview with these guys, Grimerica?
Oh, thanks, buddy.
So he said he'll do it. So you guys, you guys have got a Sir Bacon episode for sure.
That would be fun.
Yeah, so
it would be fun.
And
I'm trying to look at because I'm trying to remember the premise of why they were all doing it. But there was a bunch of stuff encoded in the title of the sonnets, and
it had to do with the pyramids in the end. And
yeah. Well, maybe we should get all you guys on the show at the same time. I mean, I could text Alan. He's probably busy right now, but we could do another show down the road.
Darren, and yep, Darren, we've never actually met, but hi,
Hi,
my name's John.
I'm Darren.
but Darren, yeah, I know we've never communicated.
Didn't we do a show
but
before?
Intro. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Darren, so when you just said you said what they're doing, and you meant the writers of whoever Shakespeare was. What did you mean by that? Like you mentioned the word encoding too, and I wasn't clear on that idea.
So now I'm like paraphrasing probably poorly, but it's like the idea was that inside of all of the Shakespeare sonnets is encoded a bunch of this crazy math stuff and theorems that weren't even publicly available yet.
Right.
Which would sort of fit into the Francis Bacon motif to me. So it's like they had all the stuff that mainstream science and academia hadn't come up with yet, but it's already in the sonnets, back in the dates you're referring to. And mainstream science, I don't remember the dates or anything, but it was like mainstream science didn't figure some of this shit out for another 20 years. and a big part of it is the title itself, and there's like 4 different mathematical things built into the title if you draw lines between the dots.
Right. There's all that kind of neat stuff in there. But in terms of, quote unquote, what they were doing back then, that was when the poet was everything. Right? There were poets who were not concealed poets. And by that, I mean, there were, John Donne was one of our famous English poets. But those guys weren't part of the court. They weren't hanging out at the court. Some of them kind of did, but they weren't part of the court.
We got to bust into that fireplace, and then we'll know. In the altar. We got to bust into the altar.
Well, now that's interesting. And, it would be awesome if there was something. I mean, that would
Contact at the
awesome.
altar. We'll bust that shit open. Hashtag not a cult.
Should have done it during COVID.
Part of me, I've done a lot of legal activism over the years, and I'll get into that in the Article 5 stuff if you want. But, part of me, I'm the type, I'm like, wait, there could be something in there that will change the way we see how we're doing. So that's worth going to jail for. So, like, storm it, don't hurt anyone.
Especially where someone else going to jail for it. I agree. Listen, I agree. The problem is in another country. Because now I'm a terrorist.
Well, it's such a big. It would be such a big idea to break onto.
You're like running out with the scroll in your hand.
We'll have to be in an English jail for a little bit, but who cares?
It's probably better than a Canadian jail anyway. Probably safer.
Yeah, right. Aren't the Europeans are socialized, right? They're I guess the
boy.
folks. I don't know.
We'll be getting emails.
If there's probably no jail.
Yeah, they just like fine. The Bobbies or the Billies? What are the cops?
Service, that's it.
The cops don't even have guns.
You guys.
The cops don't even have guns. We'll just run away.
Yeah. The word socialized is a gnarly word, and I could derive probably 3 or 4 interpretations of me using it just then. The sense that I meant in
the most derogatory possible
is that as a stupid American who's been corporatized, right? I heard the French give prisoners croissants, right? So part of it that is like
it's probably
joke,
still better bread than we get here too.
It's partly a joke, but it's also part true and stuff. So,
we don't.
I just thought, all right, yeah, maybe you guys are right. Maybe the English jails are better than the Canadian jails.
Well, they're probably similar to Canada, but yeah, they're. I mean, we're not privatized like you guys down there. That's pretty weird, privatizing your whole jail system.
Dude, oh my God. Well, it's all part of what I call my term for it is the dragon's claw, right? It's slowly closing on us, and we're all sitting there going, "Oh my God, what are we gonna do?" And so, if that's the case, that's a really exciting time to live, and it's an exciting time to test your mettle and really kind of adhere or be focused on what you're actually saying and what you're actually doing. What are you saying and what are you doing day to day? Is it cool? Is it good? Good. All right, yeah, because guess what? It is possible to be cool every day and to say the right things and do not 100%. No one can do that, but people can be cool and the corporate media stuff. You see all we're all a bunch of fucking idiots. Well, no, we're not. They just like flash that to us all the time. And so, hey, let's talk about the Article 5 stuff.
Yeah, sure. But I do want to say that that's well said, and I agree with you. I mean, it is interesting times. I got to bring myself back to we are living an amazing, unique time.
Oh
it's that to have that level of curiosity instead of sort of black pill doom scrolling is I think that's really good advice. So.
Yeah. So
and leave time for the Hopi. We want to get into the Hopi a little bit too. So
before we launch into the Article 5, one moment, please.
Okay, sure. Yep. He's just gonna go wave to the train going by right now, going up the coast. He's in the industrial park.
Think he's coming back
on the beach? Yeah, he might be gone for good. He's just there he goes. He got it.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so do you want to go with the Hopi or the Article 5?
Article 5.
Okay. How did it go?
Last report was we had articlevconvention.org set up as an online Article 5 convention. And there was, at present, there's 102 delegates signed on there. Earlier this month, we did put it to the people that are signed on. Should we cap the convention? Should we shut off? No more delegates. Only this 80 of us or 100, how many people were on that day? And it was. I think it was 6-2. 6 people said no, don't cap it. 2 people said yeah, cap it. So there was a couple other exchanges about this one amendment regarding creating a federal standard for voting and voter registration. Right. So in America, we were all just traumatized by this rat election and, people's heads are still spinning from it. And so, well, if you're an adult and you walked into the room and saw the situation, you'd say, oh, well, you need a federal standard for voting and voter registration. Right. Now you're not going to be guessing whether this state or that state got it right. And, so that's the common sense stuff. And the Congress, of course, the 535 members of Congress aren't talking about it, right? They're just walking around talking about A, B, and C and all these other things. So the Article 5 convention that is currently existing on articlevconvention.org is open right now. According to the amendment, which is a single sentence long, that basically says anything we're not talking about here is left to the people. Same thing with the 10th Amendment. So I did notice a couple other people just joined on recently. So it might take off. It might all of a sudden, because it's a really great software for facilitating back and forth and building consensus, and it's there, and so that's happening right now. But I want to talk about the practical politics of Article 5, and that is what's actually happening in America right now regarding that. And I'm speaking from over 20 years now, over 20 years experience. It was right after 9/11. I had heard about the idea of a constitutional convention before that. But within the week of 9/11, I said, the bad guys are going to get in there. They're going to do, they're going to try and pass all this legislation and everything, right? History is going to repeat itself. So I said, we got to have a convention. So I set about trying to bring about a convention, and I ran into Bill Walker, who was a constitutional scholar from the state of Washington. He had a degree in journalism, but he was a constitutional scholar. The guy knew everything about the Constitution. It was just amazing. And that was his thing. He was an Eagle Scout too, by the way.
Can you back up? Can you back up for a second? Just explain for our global audience who's not American, like what is the purpose of Article 5? Like what is the fundamental benefit?
The fundamental thing is when all the guys were in Independence Hall in 1787. That was an actual year that actually happened. A whole bunch of white dudes showed up to this one hall. They sat in there for months. And before they left, Colonel Mason said, wait a minute, Congress can propose changes, but what if Congress becomes the problem? And so they all said, well, we need a convention clause so that if Congress becomes the problem, the states can say, hey, we need a convention. This isn't working. Right? So
and when you say convention in that regard, that's kind of hard to understand for people as well, especially myself. So when you say convention, you need a convention, you need an interruption or a what's the word I'm looking for when you stop something?
Pause.
Intervention. Like you need an intervention.
Yeah, technically that's what it is. It's the state stepping in, saying the 535 people in Washington, D.C. are no longer representing anyone except whoever can give them the most money, and that's going to cause a problem, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a rudimentary device that should the federal government become corrupt, if the states started paying in the convention thing and it reached a numerical count, Congress has to call a convention. Well, as it turns out, what happened was when we should have had our first convention back in 1913, it was in regards to the 17th Amendment, and that generation of Americans started beating the drum for a convention. The Congress said, here, yeah, you guys can vote for your state senator. All right, you got it. And it staved off the actual, it pacified the country to not say, no, well, you guys, we still have enough applications, and, people want to talk about other things other than this 17th Amendment. So it was the same of the old thing, or where they just steamrolled over it, and then that generation of Americans weren't able to address what was happening. But over in the successive decades, it happens about once every 10 years, a segment of society will say, you know what, this is bogus. The Congress is bogus, and we should have a convention. And so the mainstream media will, run an editorial saying, geez, they're really close to almost having an Article 5 convention. They've almost got all the states lined up. And then they shoot it down at the end of the editorial. And they say, oh my God, but wait, if we have a convention, everything's on the table. Special interest delegates, maybe they might slice and dice in the Constitution. That's crazy. We don't want a convention. So that's basically the sales pitch. But really a convention, once you have it, once you say, hey, I want a federal standard for voting and voter registration so we don't get traumatized every time we have a national election. Once you talk about it, at some point, a delegate is going to say, I make a motion, we adjourn. I make a motion that we talked about everything we need to talk about. No one's got any good idea. I want to get back to my family and friends, right? So at some point, the convention, whatever they talk about, is going to adjourn. Now, when it adjourns, nothing will have been ratified. Nothing will have changed from what it is exactly right now. And that's the myth that people can't get over. They think if we enter into a convention, it's going to lead, to me sucking my thumb in a dark room. I can't believe that people. Well, maybe it's not so hard to believe with conditioning and everything, but But anyway, so all right. So here we are, boots on the ground thing in terms of Article 5. In 2011, I was working with Larry Lessig, who is a professor at Harvard. He's been in the news here and there over the years. He's actually written a couple books that mention the Article 5 Convention. And so in 2011, we had a convention at Harvard in one of the halls. I forget the name of the hall, but it had these really beautiful granite sculpted things. Standing on the steps, marveling at it. But so we had this convention. There's 400 people there, a whole bunch of people from the right and left talking about what is this convention clause? What are we going to do? And so one of the groups that were there at that convention was this group called Convention of States. And that's been one of the main AstroTurf groups.
Wow.
Meaning a group where, yeah, they're talking about convention, but they're going to go down this path that has no real way of getting to an actual convention.
Wow.
And what I mean by that is our group, the group that I was co-founder of Friends of the Article 5 Convention, along with Michigan Chief Justice Tom Brennan and constitutional scholar Bill Walker. And we founded that group in 2007. Tom and Bill, as I mentioned in the previous, the first thing I did with you guys, they passed away. And that's actually why that article5convention.org exists, because I'm like, Tom and Bill just passed away. What? So I had that domain, and that's why that exists right now. And it is there, who knows? It might turn into something.
So did that AstroTurf group, the Conventions of the States, come out to sort of take the focus away from the Friends of the Article 5, or?
Right. So here's what happened. So we get to this convention, and Larry knew our position. Bill and Tom and I were there, and they knew our position. And our position was based on the congressional records. The congressional records of the United States of America are actually part of the Constitution, because the Constitution mandates both houses keep records. So that is the living part of the Constitution. Now, in those records, of course, there's going to be state applications, right? It's not a petition. That's a different legal definition. This is an application from a state for a federal convention. And our group had gone into the congressional records, and Bill did most of this stuff. I was trying to get a documentary made at the time. But Bill contacted some folks in Washington, D.C. They went into the records, and they started getting PDF files of the state applications. And that's on one of the links that I sent you, the foavc.org link. And you'll see in one of the little links on the top right hand of the page, you'll see applications, and it shows all the hundreds of applications. And one of the applications is, I think it's from Wisconsin. It's probably from like the 30s. And they say in the memorial, which is how Congress terms it in an application, in the memorial, they Congress, you motherfuckers.
Can you we lost you.
Already cast applications.
We lost you for a sec.
Yeah,
can you
okay.
repeat that in the memorial after the in the memorial?
Right. So in Wisconsin memorial, to paraphrase, they basically said, Congress, you motherfuckers, all these states have already applied for the convention. You have no choice in the matter. This is a ministerial action. This is your constitutional obligation. And so we've had applications like that. So basically, I think I mentioned this to you, Graham, in our first call. There's the writer Voltaire, and he uses the metaphor of, I think he's the first English writer, or he was French, but he was the first writer to use the metaphor of visitors from another part of the galaxy rolling up on planet Earth, right? And they start punching and so, hey, what's going on down there, And if that metaphor was put into effect right now, you'd say, okay, well, on the global stage, the United States of America is one of the premier players. And it's the only player that has a written constitution that has this provision where the people get to build consensus. So anyway, so the only reason our world looks the way it does right now is because our Congress was corrupted in various ways. And, in the 1860s, after the Civil War, there was a lot of rad stuff that was done, supposedly incorporation of Washington, D.C. and connection to the London Bank of London, all that kind of stuff. But anyways, the bare facts are that the Constitution has a provision for the people who are alive, not for the people, some nebulous thing. What does it mean to you? But the people who are alive, it's a rudimentary device to say, hey, what do we need to do? What's going on? Anyone got any good ideas? Right? That's all the convention is. And so but having that take place, it makes all the politicians have to dance out of the way, right? But there doesn't have to be a bloody revolution. It's just the people stepping in onto their sacred space to say, what do we want to do? So hopefully that'll happen. And, I'll tell you, we could get the call any day from Congress. I know that seems, oh, my God, they would never do that. But I'll tell you this. This is a couple pieces to the reason I believe it's possible. The first one is in 2010, that was the Tea Party Congress. And that was a Congress where they read the Constitution from the floor of the House on the first day of Congress. They said, yeah, we're the Tea Party Congress. And so before they started reading, they said, well, we're going to read what the Congressional Research Service has told us to read. And the Congressional Research Service is, of course, the research arm that if a member of Congress needs to know anything, they say, what's up with this? So they said, we're going to read what the Congressional Research Service says. And so I'm sitting there watching like a hawk, and they skip over to the convention clause. They don't read it.
Wow.
Right? They skip right over it. We redoubled our efforts.
So did they just go like Article 4, Article 6?
You know what they did? They took off the last clause of Article 4, which is that the Congress shall make sure that everyone gets to live in a Republican government. And they skipped over all the way until they talk about the ratification stuff of whether it's proposed by Congress or a convention. And that's a really salient point is that if you're afraid of a convention, Congress could propose an amendment at any time. They could propose an amendment at any time. And whatever they propose, you got to get roughly 7 out of 10 Americans to say, oh, I like that idea, right? So, and if a convention proposes an idea, again, you're going to have to get 7 out of 10 Americans to agree to it. But anyway, so
it goes to some sort of referendum from there?
Well, once Congress sends the proposed amendments to the states, they get to make the decision whether the ratification mode is going to be like a little mini convention in state, going to be the legislature. So what that means in practical terms is that if it's going to go to the legislature, that means the people are going to have to say, hey, my state rep, hey, dude, we want this amendment, man. So it's going to mean the people are going to be pressuring the state legislature. But if it's a little mini convention, then the states hold mini conventions, and then they say, hey, should we do this or not? And in fact, when we got to start drinking beer again, that amendment was ratified by little mini conventions because that step is even closer to the people. So you're even removing the state legislators from the decision making at that point. So anyway, so the 2010 thing, and they said, well, we're just going to read. So it's over Article 5. Tom, Bill, and I redoubled our efforts. We did a lot of blogging. I did some had a criminal case that I got lodged in the court system regarding this. And so 2 years later, in 2012, the Congressional Research Service writes a 2-part white paper all about the Article 5 Convention. So you got to ask yourself, how is it the Congressional Research Service is telling members of Congress, no, don't read this clause, it's not applicable anymore. Or, and then 2 years later, they're like, here's everything we know, including this group, Friends of the Article 5 Convention, who say we should have a call forthwith. Right? So
how do they get away with all this? I mean, it just seems so disappointing that there's a means for you guys to actually do something, and there's not enough people with momentum. Like, where's all these sort of independent groups? Like, where's all the libertarians and all these people that have all, like, the Dave Smiths of the world that are, you know, for all this political change? Yet why don't they use this thing why don't they use their influence to get these things going?
It's been something I've wondered many times over the last 20
And any
years.
kind of momentum you get, it seems like they come out with some sort of way to gaslight it or discredit it.
Right, but here we are, right? Here we are, ready for America, right? The beacon on the hill, ready for America to break us all out of the cage, right? It's a big cage, right? It's not rocket science. So we're all ready to do it, but for some reason the players on the scene are just like, well, let's do it this way. And going back to the Convention of States group, I watched them because I talked to Mark Meckler there at the George Washington Hotel with Cenk Uygur and other people. And I watched those guys their ship go from 0 to 3.5 million in 7 years.
Yeah. Exactly.
Took them 7 years to get 3.5. But the COS avenue was, well, we need to just cast one more application and we're going to finally get this convention, right? But that flies in the face of logic to say, well, if the congressional records are strewn with hundreds of applications and the clause has already been legally satisfied, why would you be trying to cast another application? Why wouldn't you be saying, no, Congress, you got to call it right now?
Yeah.
So that's how they've staved off what's going on. Now, since the advent of the virus thing, as I understand it, they're like at maybe getting close to 6 million. So they've over a year and a half, they've ramped up a lot of Americans. And you know, I have the Google alert, right, where I have Article V convention on there. So anytime it comes up in any of the local editorials, I see it. And so this one woman, Margot, she's in Nebraska. She said, we're going to have a Convention of States meeting in our library, you know, come show up. So I contacted the paper, said, can I get her number? They gave me her number. I talked to her for an hour and a half. They thought 20 people were going to show up, and 150 people showed up, right? This is rural Nebraska. This was this year.
Wow. Well, that's a good sign then, I guess.
Yeah, this was in February, right? So when I talk about boots on the ground, this is the point that I want to get across, is that it's happening right now. There's Americans that are saying, this is bogus, it's not working, right? It's not working for anyone. We got to do this. We got to have this convention. And a lot of people, you know, they're saying, well, current Congress is bad. What can a convention propose that would be any worse than what we got right now?
Yeah,
you know.
Exactly.
So hopefully all that is it's reached to the tipping point. I think it's there. Now, going back to your question, why has this been going on for years? We did all the groundwork. We got it all set up, but we did the lawsuits. We went to the Supreme Court, did the whole thing. Why are prominent people or people who have visibility, right? Chuck Norris wants a balanced budget amendment. Why hasn't Chuck Norris said, you know what, we should have a convention because there's a lot of things we got to talk about, and this is one I want to talk about, but whoever's got the best idea, that's going to decide the day. We'll see that later, but let's have it. You know what, Patricia Arquette, right? I actually, one of the blog things that I did was Chuck Norris and Patricia Arquette call for new amendments to the Constitution.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That spun some heads, right? But shoot, what was I saying?
There's some meme magic there.
What's that?
That's some meme magic there. I mean, get the the chans on it.
Right, they're trying to unlock it. So the question is, why hasn't this already happened? Because it should have happened already a couple times. I'll tell you one time. Listen to this. This is really interesting. So after the convention at Harvard, right? I'm like, Larry, all right, and Sandy Levinson at the University of Texas, right? Those are my two bros. We were like, Sandy's talked about a convention many times. He talked about a convention with Bill Moyers. I'm like, here we go. We're gonna get it now, you know. And there's many times over the last 20 years where I thought, oh, we got it now. But it turns out after the Harvard convention, Larry Lessig got named as a invitee to the Bilderbergs.
Oh my God! There you go. See,
and he went, and he came back, and his tune was changed.
Wow.
Truth. That.
Yeah.
So I watched that happen. Right.
We got to get to one of these Bilderberg meetings. When's the next one?
Start up an Article 5. Get really close, and then you get invited.
Well, we're Canadian.
Well,
now, Darren, check this out. This is an idea that I've had. Right? You guys see what's going on. You're like, come on, you guys. You have this unique government. You know, it was something new under the sun. It had never been done before, and it's still there as long as the people say it's there. So I always had this idea. What if an international group was started up that basically said, hey, Americans,
exactly.
You fucking idiots,
exactly.
Article 5 Convention.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You guys could do that
well,
if you
want. But the problem is the Americans don't look at what's happening around the rest of the world.
No, but it could reach a critical mass outside. Yeah. And dude, you know, I'm a surfer, and so I know a lot of, you know, on Facebook and stuff, a lot of surfers that I think are the best and awesome. And one of them, Jim Banks, an Australian surfer, he's into all the stuff Grimerica talks, all the stuff that people who are, you know, conscious sapient beings just trying to figure it out. I tried to get him. I'm like, dude, Jim, if you and Peter Townend and Ian Cairns, other, you know, Aussie surfers start saying, America, hold a convention. The corporations are totally fucking us. Come on, you know, it could happen. And so, I don't know, maybe it starts with Grimerica. Maybe you guys are like, you know what? Since we're all getting crushed by the dragon's claw, we might as well just have fun talking about the truth of the matter, which is, if we put enough pressure on Congress, they will issue the call. Which reminds me, we'll leave off on Article 5 on this note. In 2015. Luke Messer, who's a representative from the 6th District of Indiana, I believe, and he put in some language to the Judiciary Committee as a resolution that if it made it out of the Judiciary Committee to the floor for a vote and upon the vote, what that bill would have done is it would have tasked the director of the National Archives to go into the congressional records, find all the state applications, enroll them in federal documents where they are, and that would force Congress to say, fuck, they're all there. We got to call, hey, guys, hey, send your delegates if you want. This is the date. You don't have to participate, but we got a ministerial duty. We just found out we got to do it.
Now, what happened?
Right. So, it never made it out of committee, of course, right? And so that when that resolution failed to get out of committee, that really was the point where you could say what I say on the Article5Convention.org website, which is we're being held hostage.
Yeah.
The Congress is. We've got it all the way to the point to say, okay, you guys, you know, and it died in committee, which, you know, all the good stuff does. But anyways, so really that's where we are as a species, right? We got America here, right? The USA, the Constitution, those articles, those amendments, but most importantly, the articles, because those are the fundamental principles of government, which is that we know from reading all about Rome and everything that governments go south on the people. So we're going to make this thing so that if the government starts to go south, the states can chime in and say, hey, we need to look at this again, right? So it's just rudimentary thing. It's there. We're all here. I really believe it's still possible. In fact, there's another group. I'm not sure how far they are along because we kind of had a falling out about stuff, but they're going to try another online convention July 4th.
Good stuff. You don't want to do you want to mention who they are? Or?
Oh, yeah, it's articlev.org. Articlev.org. That's Dan Marks. I gave him that domain. Or no, maybe no, I gave him. And yeah, he went off. He just had other ideas. And then when I set up the online convention, I told him I was going to do it. And then he came in and I replied to him. I said, hey, we're not quite set up yet, Dan, but, bear with us. And then him and one of his associates started posting these declarations on the forum. And I'm like, whoa, no, we're not posting. We're talking about amendment language. This is an Article 5 convention.
Yeah.
And so then we had a falling out about that. And I haven't heard from, I think he's a great guy. He's done some great work. He's definitely kept me going a couple times where I was flagging. I was like going, dude, I can't take any more. He's like, no, dude, come on, we got to keep going. So he's a good guy. We just had a falling out about that. And so the most important thing that I want to say to anyone who's listening is that is where we are in reality. Of all us little human beings on this planet, the Bradis Nation is now kind of becoming aware of this provision that we don't have to take this anymore.
Maybe that post-election trauma will get it done.
I was hoping that, but the beauty is, I guess, I don't own any guns. My brother's a hunter and everything. He's full on, Trumpville and everything. But the reason we're still here is because this nation is a nation of gun owners, and they would have already done something if they could have.
Yeah, fascinating. All right, buddy. Thanks for that wrap up. Let's get into the Hopi stuff.
Yeah. All right, the Hopi stuff. The Hopi stuff.
You sent me an article which talks about them going to the UN in the late 60s, right. I think, and talking about they're worried about war and all that. But I mean, we read a fantastic Hopi prophecy when we did that Australian Uluru, and I mean it was kind of scary actually. How prescient it was. Just that what they were saying about how we need to get our shit together, basically.
Right. Okay. All right. So the Hopi thing. Okay. So the Hopi, their cosmology is unique in that they have said from the very beginning what their God told them. And I've hung out with the Hopi on this mesa a couple times, partied with them. The fun thing, I Volkswagen and drive from the mesa down to Winslow, get stoned, drink all the way down, and get stoned and drink all the way back. I look at the beautiful landscape, listen to, and they showed I saw their cornfields, traditional cornfields, and the wells and stuff. And I want to say this because I want to preface anything that I say about the Hopi, and that is that I've been all across America, the 48 states, every state except Alaska, as I mentioned, 5-6 times a piece. And I've been running around talking about the Article 5 stuff. And what I found out is that Americans don't even know their own culture. They don't even know what the truth of the matter is. When I've hung out with the Hopi, those guys are awesome. We had a good time. I hope we can get to see Desmond and the Sun Chief there again. I've been meaning to go out there again. But what I came to realize hanging out with the Hopi is the Hopi don't even know their real culture anymore, based on stuff that has been written back at 1901, 1910, even the 1960s. There's stuff that living Hopis today, if you tried to say something to them about it, it would just, they could, just like Americans can't process that a convention is not dangerous. It's why we're here. So I just want to say that I of course have my own opinions based on my experience, and I'll be keen to say that it's an opinion, but to start out the Hopi stuff, the Hopi cosmology is the story about what their God told them, and the cosmology is this: that there's Dawa, and he created his nephew, Sotuknang. And Sotuknang woke up and he said, "Who am I and why am I here?" And he said, "You're my nephew. I want you to go create 7 universes for me and the future." So he goes out, creates 7 universes, comes back and says, "Here, how did I do?" He's like, so Val was like, "You did a great job, awesome. Now I want you to go find Spider Woman and create life." All right, so we get to this thing. Now, of the 7 universes that were created, we've already been through, according to the Hopi, we've already been through 3 of them. So we've already had 3 previous civilizations. You guys know there's plenty of evidence for this, right? There's all kinds of forbidden knowledge, all those. What's that guy's name who did forbidden archaeology? I forget his name.
Cremo?
Michael Cremo.
You haven't? Yeah, right. Yeah, Michael Cremo. And so all this has been done. There's been previous civilizations. When the Hopi, at the end of each civilization, it was because humans got debauched. They got mockingbirded by someone. One it was like a turquoise woman or something. I actually shouldn't be saying that kind of. But it was there was the people got misled by different. It was this woman who was just insanely beautiful, and she had a beautiful voice, and everyone just did whatever she said. And that was the end of one of the civilizations. But there's been 3 of them that have been human civilizations become debauched.
So debauch as in debauchery kind of thing, or debauch?
As in we were not remaining conscious that the sun is the dad and the earth is the mom, and we shouldn't denigrate them at all. We shouldn't despoil them at all. We should treat them well. We don't have to treat the sun. The sun treats us how the sun.
Well, we can block it for sure.
Well, the sun, as you know, is I think you can fit 1 million Earths inside the sun. So the sun, and according to the Hopi, one of the civilizations ended by fire. And that correlates and matches up with the Tibetans, who in their cosmology, one of the worlds also ended by fire. And in scientific terms, of course, that's a solar flare. If the sun ever, if the sun conscious, you guys have heard of Rupert Sheldrake, right?
Yep.
Rupert Sheldrake, you guys heard of that guy?
Yeah.
And he's got the paper. He's a sun conscious. That every self-organized entity has some vibrational level and everything. So if the sun's conscious, the sun could say, "No, it's time to hit the reset button on the humans. They're out of control." If that's relationship. And then also there's been a pole shift, right? So that's the Earth saying, "No, we're going to hit the reset button."
So some of the Hopi stuff seems to match some of the, as far as the pole shift goes too, some of the sort of the Norse mythologies or the Hyperborea type stuff, or even the Vedas, and they talked about that happening, I think. So it seems to match other mythologies.
So
yeah.
This is what's so insanely beautiful about the Hopi. Everything they say, everywhere else around the globe says, "Well, that's what the Hopi were." So that's why the Hopi are and we'll talk about it. So I got all right. So one thing I did want to mention that I didn't mention is that when human beings are created, human beings, according to Hopi cosmology, were created for two things: to create joyful sounds and joyful movements. That's why we're here. That's what we're meant to do. Free of charge, right? Tesla already got us free energy, fair and square. But anyway, so that's anyway. So according to Hopi, that's why we're here. So anyone ever ask you why we're here? Tell them, according to the Hopi, we're here to make joyful sounds and joyful movements. So anyway, so three civilizations end, right? And now at the end of each civilization, either one of the brothers who attend to the poles, or Spider Woman, I forget, but they find the Hopis who are still doing the Hopi way of life. They lead them to the ant people. They go in underground. Then the earth goes through its catastrophe, and then the righteous people are let back out onto the earth to try again.
Wow.
And so and that all kind of points to inner Earth stuff, the ant people. All that. I don't have any evidence of that myself, and I'll just say, I've never seen a UFO, I've never seen an alien, I've never seen a ghost. So I'm still very, empiricist minded. But we've heard a lot of stuff, a lot of myth, a lot of stories that there is underground stuff. This connects to the Hopi cosmology, that the righteous that are right. So now it's the end of the third world, and now we're going to move into the fourth world, and that's the world we're in now. We're, according to the Hopi, we are now at the end of the fourth world, because this was the prophecy that the elders were given, that when the gourd of ashes is dropped on Mother Earth, the elders alive at that time were to go to the house of glass, the house of mica. To them, mica is a mineral that's like glass. They were supposed to go to the house of glass on the eastern shore and address the leaders of the nations, that if they didn't become peaceable and blend with the land, they would cause a catastrophe, right? So when the atom bomb was dropped on Japan, the Hopi elders alive at that time, in what was it, 1940 something? The Hopi elders alive in Arizona at that time said, well, that's the gourd of ashes.
Okay.
And the UN building is the house of glass. And now we're going to carry out our prophecy, our instructions from our God, and we're going to now we're going to try 4 times. We're going to go try and address the leaders of the nations and tell them, if they don't become peaceable and blend with the land, you're going to cause a catastrophe. And so the link the text that I sent you, I hope you can put that up for folks. It's from a 1953 Wall Street Journal editorial making fun of Hopi elders trying to address the General Assembly and bring their message. Now, they did fulfill their instructions. They did go 4 times to the UN, and then it was the 90s, and like a couple of the last Hopi elders who really knew everything, to the extent that perhaps needed to be known, they passed away. I think Thomas Bianca, and I'm not sure if I have the pronunciation of his last name correct, but he was one of the last elders, and I think he passed in 2001. So, but in the prophecies, also the stuff that their God told them, they said, oh, this is a really neat part. I'm glad I remember this. When they came out of the ground into the fourth world, they said they were told to go find their God. They found their God, and their God said, okay, you guys have to now do 4 migrations around this hemisphere. And after you're done with 4 migrations, come back here and meet me. So the different clans with different ways, and those migrations, according to science, is actually the origin of all the red people, from Tierra del Fuego to the Arctic. The Hopi seeded this hemisphere, and so they did that. They did as instructed, and they came back to the Four Corners area, northeastern Arizona, and their God told them, they said, okay, here's how you're going to live. Here's how you plant corn. Here's how you do it. Here's the springs on these mesas that we've picked out for you and stuff. And here's how you build rock apartments and live in. You're going to live here for a couple thousand years, just like this. Just like we told you, you're going to have everything you need. It's going to be paradise. But after a while, these people are going to show up. These assholes are going to show up, and they're going to call themselves Navajo. But you be nice to them, give them some of your land, and coexist. Now, after the Navajo show up, a couple thousand years after that, these other assholes are going to show up. And they're going to be white dudes. But you be good, you coexist and stuff, and you live for that day when the gourd of ashes drops so that the elders alive then can carry out the instructions. So here we have a situation where the cosmology of a people have a God telling them all this stuff that's going to happen that has already come to pass and everything. And all this stuff that, you know, in the prophecies, like there's going to be chariots in the sky, there's going to be spider webs across the land, communication. They describe all this stuff, and even some of the esoteric stuff, which is one bit that I remember reading somewhere obscure. I'm trying to remember where that was.
Is there somewhere that's collating a lot of this stuff that if people want to go deeper into the Hopi prophecies and all this? I mean, it sounds fascinating with the spider web, the internet. Basically, they predicted the internet.
Right. Basically, because of the deleterious effects of corporate America, it's just been all splintering. You know, every day I was, and that I'm even here really is, you know, I mean, because I've you know. That I'm here is, you know, that I have this composite of information really is kind of, it's I occasionally I reflect on it and I go, who the fuck are you? You know, but anyways, I have dug for that, you know, for years because you know, ultimately, actually, I'll answer that question if you'll allow it. I'm a poet. You know, that's where I grew up as. I was, you know, I was always painting and drawing as a child, like most artists. But at age 10, I wrote a poem, and I was like, oh, my God, dude, you're a poet, right? And then I chased the literary life for 40 years. But all that literary stuff was really the poet, and the poet has to know the truth, because how is he going to write the raddest poem ever, right? How is he going to raise consciousness? So as a poet, which is a real thing, which I am, right. But so I'm this guy who's always been digging for the truth. When I ran into the Hopi, I'm like, oh my God, this is tying together all kinds of stuff, right? And Article 5 and all this. But the Hopi stuff, what's really interesting is that their God told them some white dudes, some assholes were going to show up in the future. Now, in terms of ancient alien stuff, what that means is that the ancient aliens, they wound up the top over in Europe, right? They spun that all together and everything. Then they got the Western Hemisphere all spinning together for this like grand thing of oh, now they're dropping the atom bomb. And, you know, so what I believe, my takeaway is that the sun and the earth are conscious, and they still are holding out hope for us.
Right on.
Fascinating.
It is. It's. I want to learn more. I do.
There you have it.
And yeah, You're going to learn more about yours, I think, right?
I got all sorts of plans.
Yeah.
But I don't know when I'll get to the Hopi.
So did the UN, did that like get through to the UN at all? Like it must have woken up. It must have woken up a few people. Like
that would be a really neat documentary. Is to try and find those documents. I know they're in there somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know that there is somewhere on the internet. I believe there is one of the transcripts of one of the Hopi elders addressing the General Assembly at one of those meetings.
That'd be a great thing to read or narrate or something. I just like a part of history that really is sort of interesting and just hidden there, nobody's really talking about it because it must have woken up some people.
Must have,
because I feel like that was before the UN was fully corrupted into what it is now.
Nah, it's always been corrupt.
Yeah, my sense is that it's that there's flux. And yes, the facts are, if you look at all the facts, if you look at the Berne treaties in the Bank of London and the Bank of International Settlements and all that, then you say no, they've always had it in hand. The bad guys have always had it in hand. But why are they letting us talk about a convention, right? Why'd they let us go through 20 years of building this thing up and everything? And that's there. One of the reasons I know a lot about the Hopi is because, I published a novel in 2006, and I published a translation of Shakespeare, and so after I did those, I said I am never fucking writing a book ever again. You can fucking get me to do it. No way. It's the gnarliest thing you could ever do. And 4 years ago, this new book started knocking on the door, saying, "Hi, we're your new book." And then so I have 4 years of work into this new book, and part of that work is the guy who wrote the Book of the Hopi, a guy named Frank Waters. He passed away, but his wife has held on to the Frank Waters Foundation in Arroyo Seco, New Mexico. And so when I was getting into the Hopi stuff, I'm like, okay, man, in this novel, you're going to tell all this Hopi stuff. And so when I was doing a little research, I found out, oh my God, the Frank Waters Foundation. So I contacted her, talked with her, and I was a writer in residence at Frank Waters' house in Arroyo Seco, this adobe house that he got. And that turned into a whole nother chapter. It's a gnarly chapter, but I lived out there, and his wife, who right now I'm forgetting her name, Barbara. Ended up in the hospital while I was there at the residence, and so they wanted me to stay in the house with the dogs and stuff. And one night, I'm looking at the bookshelf and everything, and I found this is Frank Waters' house. And he actually has, besides the Book of the Hopi, he also has a book called Pumpkin Seed Point, which is about the 3 years that he lived with the Hopi to try and get all their cosmology together.
Wow.
So
are you, when is this?
Living in So I'm there, and I'm hanging out, and I found under the bookshelf the Eagle's Cry, which was the newspaper. It was the Hopi newspaper. There's a stack of the Eagle's Cry from this period where the tribal council was going nuts of all the traditionals were saying, no, come on, we got to stay with our, with what we know. And then all the other people say, no, let's become Christians and, drive Ford pickups. There was all that stuff that was there, recorded in the newspaper and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. There might be a bullshit tomorrow. The Yosemite might blow up. The Earth and Sun could say, yeah, it's time to hit the reset button.
So when are you going to come up with this book then?
I have a little writing cave out in the desert that I drive to, and I just got a really good. I sell color field art, so I sell like contemporary stuff, stuff like this right here. So this is an oil painting on board, stuff like that. I got color field stuff. So I sell it. There's a lot of upscale foot traffic here in the arts district. So I sell all that kind of stuff. And I just had a really good sale on Memorial Day weekend. Some hotelier bought 60 pieces.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm just like, all right, you got some dough, you got your car put together, go right. So in answer to your question, dude, I got to finish the novel, right? Part of me is like, no, pretty pictures and have fun all day, right? Which I want to do, but no, I am going to finish it. And after this last sale, earlier this spring, I went out to the writing cave and I crushed this one chapter where if you've ever written a book, especially a novel, you have all this raw material, right? This file has got all this raw material, and it's all there, but you got to arrange it, you got to crunch it all, you got to hammer it all together into this something. And so it was a big chapter, and I got that finished, and the Hopi chapter is 2/3 finished, and so I will. I would like to have a rough draft by the end of this year, hopefully.
Let us know when it comes. Let us know when you get there.
Yeah.
Graham will narrate it for you.
I'll narrate it for you. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. And actually, I heard you guys mention that you guys got a whole bunch of titles that you want to put on books on tape.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm totally down with that. So after I finish the novel, and I did recording for the blind and dyslexic here in Santa Barbara. I did it for like 5 years. I'd go in and read books.
Nice. Great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Right on, buddy. Well, thanks for coming on again. It's fascinating chat.
You guys, I mean, I can't tell you how really this was really cathartic for me, because it's something, I got to put all that stuff together into one talk, and I had not done that before, and it felt really good. So
awesome.
I really appreciate it so much.
Awesome, buddy. Thanks. Keep in touch.
Totally. Thanks, John. Good luck with the convention.
Yeah. Well, if anyone wants to jump in there, they can. If there's any late developments or something you want to, bring me back on for an update, I'm always happy to do that. And if not, I'll contact you as soon as I got the book together.
Right on, buddy. I'll put all the links to all that stuff in the show notes for people so they can find you.
Yeah, and the Sir Bacon guy, I'll send you his number.
Okay.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Thanks, buddy.
All right,
Thanks
John.
so much, guys.
See ya.
Enjoy California.
Yeah.
And that was our chat with John Herrera. What do you think, buddy?
Yeah. Wow, it was a roller coaster.
Roller coaster whirlwind.
Sorry about the internet. I was gonna say turn off your video, but it was just so nice to look at him when he's talking. I thought,
you like him,
it's kind of a selfish thing, but but we should.
The show is a selfish thing.
I should have probably just said, just turn off your video so the internet stays better. But it's good to just have that interaction back and forth. It is different when you're just doing audio only. I don't like it as much.
Dude, you were just complaining before the show.
That's other people. This is our own personal video with him. I knew you were going to bring that up. I thought you might be fascinated with the book writing and the Hopi stuff, and I mean even the Article 5 seems important. And the Francis Bacon, I think I'm onto something. I think that Francis Bacon was divinely
have a revenge
conceived.
In Seattle.
He was divinely conceived. He was like, he should be like with Jesus and Buddha and all these other people that are actually like Immaculate Conception. We're doing the show next week on that book. It'll be fascinating. I'm really enjoying the book.
I bet.
So we'll see if Queen Elizabeth comes up in her analysis.
Or goes down. Big thanks. Big thanks to John for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening. Even bigger thanks if you're a supporter of the show. Of course, this show is 100% value for value. No ads, no affiliates, none of that stuff. So if you can, when you can, head over to grimerica.ca/support. Sign up for a monthly, make a one-time donation, whatever you can do to help us keep rolling around here, keep the lights on, keep a roof over Graham's head, everyone's head, my head too, I guess, to a certain extent.
Adultbrain.ca.
The Secret Teachings of All Ages should come live anytime, but the Secret Doctrine #1 still there, still popping. Adultbrain.ca to get those audio books. grimericaoutlawed.ca for the other podcast, the 2-hour show, if you remember. grimerica.ca/chats. Just head over to the show notes. There's a bunch of stuff in the show notes that you can do. It'll take you to every place. #1, support. We can't do this without you. We love you. Thanks for listening. And we will see you next week. Still live. We made it through that stream without dropping any frames.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So, yeah, big thanks to you guys for tuning into the live show. We'll be back. Of course, we're live Saturday. This Saturday is the Bonanza, the call-in show.
Right, yeah.
The 500th episode Bonanza.
With Joe Roop on the
Fringe FM. Or text him today and just make sure he remembers. He's a pro. I'm sure he does. So check that out. It'll also be on the YouTube, the Rockfin, all the other places we stream. It'll be 3-4 hours, and we'll be taking calls the whole time. So check that out. That'll be this Saturday. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in live.